Detox is not specific to picky eaters who are not eating healthy foods. It should really be something that everyone does. Everyone has toxins in their body because we live in a world where it's impossible to avoid toxins and chemicals.
Are meal times a serious struggle? Does your child eat a limited number of foods? Does your child eliminate entire food groups? Are you tired of waiting for them to just grow out of it? Welcome to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater, where you'll learn strategies to help your picky eater expand their palate. With Christine Marati-Yoder, a pediatric feeding specialist, speech pathologist, mom of a child with feeding issues, and author of Mealtime Mindset. Let's get started. Here's Christine.
Hi, thank you for joining us today. So it is a new month. We are in September now, and I'm recording this in 2023. So I had said the last couple of days on Instagram, that this month we're going to be talking about a new topic, and this actually happens to be, I feel like I say this all the time, but this actually happens to be one of my favorite things to talk about. Now it's somewhat related to food and feeding. We're talking about toxins and detoxing and how we can help picky eaters of all people detox, because a lot of our picky eaters are actually eating a lot of processed foods, a lot of foods with additives and flavors and colors and things that are just not good for our brains or our bodies, right? So, this is especially important to talk about with picky eaters. But I wanted to do it in a way that wouldn't overwhelm parents because you're already overwhelmed. You're already trying to get food on the plate that they're going to eat and making sure they're eating and wrangling them for meals. Like there's already all of these steps and all of these suggestions and things that I tell you to do. I don't want to feel like I'm dumping another one on you. So I have come up with a list of the easiest, like anyone can add these 7 steps into their daily routine, and it does not matter which foods your child is eating. You will be able to add, I think, every single one of these in. So I'm really excited about that. um, so um, so don't tune me out just yet and be like, oh my God, I can't do one more thing. These are things you're already doing. I'm just going to give you like a little bit more specifics about like how to make them a little bit healthier, more detoxifying than maybe they were previous to you. So stick around. This episode is going to have a ton of information. And I find it very life-changing. But way before I ever was married or thought about having a baby, this is kind of where I started, like with my like health kick and my interest in being healthier, honestly. I started learning about sugar and toxins, and it became like a whole thing. I actually in my previous job, I actually had taught, so I was in a school district and I was teaching students. I was doing speech therapy, but one of the, I suppose, perks of my school district, I don't know if all school districts do this, but they sometimes will allow a teacher to teach an in-service course that's only available to the staff, essentially. And I actually was fortunate enough they allowed me to put together this whole course on detoxifying. And I gave the course several times to many different rounds of students, teachers, really. They were my students, but they were actually teachers. And all of the feedback I got was really phenomenal. Everyone learned a ton of information, and I'm very hopeful that in the very near future, I'm going to be putting that presentation information into a course that you guys will be able to access on my website. But it is so detailed. There is so much in there. And I want to do it justice, but I also don't want it to be overwhelming at the same time. So I'm trying to find that balance. So it's not available just yet, but I think it will be in the near future. But this is a topic that's so near and dear to my heart. And at some point, I drove my whole family crazy because I was like, well, no, don't just check the label on that, or don't have this, or oh no, you got to throw this thing out, right? So that's not a topic for today. Pantry detox is something that could be like a whole course in and of itself, or at the very least, a whole episode. So I'm not going to go into that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about seven. And actually, as I was just taking some like bullet point notes, I thought of an eighth that I'm just going to bonus throw in there. But seven easy ways to detox. You honestly, it's not just for your kids, it's for your whole family. Detox is not specific to picky eaters who are not eating healthy foods. It should really be something that everyone does. Everyone has toxins in their body because we live in a world where it's impossible to avoid toxins and chemicals. It just is. It's unfortunate, but it is the world we live in. I don't imagine that there's a corner of the earth that isn't affected by toxins and chemicals. Um, so this is going to be super easy ways for you to implement these things that will hopefully make a bigger impact, than you could even imagine. That's what I hope for you. Okay, so let's dive in. My first one is so easy, drinking water, but I'm going to go a step further. I'm going to be a little bit more specific here. I don't normally recommend drinking bottled water, especially plastic bottled water. I don't know, how many people know this, but water is not regulated by really any one specific industry. It's not like we really don't know, like, just like the general basic store brand, or even, other brands like Dasani and Poland Spring, like the popular ones. We really don't even know what is exactly in that water. For the most part, what you are getting for sure is the plastic that leaches from the water bottle into the water. So if anything, that is, something that we definitely want to avoid. So normally I never recommend drinking from bottled water. Now, of course, if you are I've of course done this, right? I'm someplace and I don't have my water and I'm getting very dehydrated. And, obviously, there's pros and cons to everything. So, like me not drinking water and like passing out eventually, or me drinking water and feeling okay, knowing that maybe I have to like detox a little bit after, right? So, I'm not so crazy that I won't touch certain items. You have those moments, especially with kids, where you're going to be out somewhere and you're like, oh, fine, whatever. Right. But, the more the better you can do, or to try to plan ahead so that you can make the best choices possible. So I always try to bring my own water from home, which I do filter my water. We have a whole house water filter, reverse osmosis filter. And then we even have a Berkey filter, which is also like a super filtering system. Um, but today actually, I want to even do something way easier than even going into the water, because the water thing could be a whole episode on itself. But and like I said, I know I normally am not supportive of plastic bottles, but Fiji water is actually super important for detoxing, and I'll tell you why. Um, it actually contains a special compound called silica, which, can you buy that as a supplement separately? Yes. This is a naturally occurring silica. And there are a few brands that happen to have this ingredient in them. I think, what was the other one? Volca or something was another brand. But okay, so anyway, so Fiji has, I think, the most the highest concentration of this silica. That's why this specific one is important. So I'm not getting sponsored by Fiji, but I just it is really useful for detox. Don't do it all the time. Like I don't only exclusively buy and drink Fiji water. But if you're doing a detox, which I would say like maybe like drink it for 5 days, that's usually what we do. That's what I had read and what had been recommended when you're kind of going and detoxing. So, what it does, this silica, it is able to cross the blood brain barrier, which is so important when you're detoxing because heavy metals actually get caught in the brain. Like behind this, essentially, the blood brain barrier is like a wall that doesn't let, it's not supposed to let in toxins, but sometimes certain pervasive heavy metals have a way of getting in there through various sources, and they get caught and your body can't get rid of it because it's like behind this imaginary wall, essentially. So, silica is an ingredient that actually is able to cross that barrier, grab onto the aluminum, and pull it back out to help excrete it in, like in your urine and get rid of it. It's actually also recommended to use with children who have autism, who have Alzheimer's, dementia. So it's definitely not something I would say is like just this is for kids too. It's good for really anyone. And aluminum, you might think, well, oh, where am I getting aluminum from? Aluminum foil is definitely there. It's not like you ingested it, but it does get onto the food that it's sticking to. And it comes from other sources. There's aluminum in vaccines. There is aluminum in the world, right? So if you're a participant in life, you're probably going to be exposed to aluminum at some point. Um, so this actually, just drinking some water. So if your kid is already drinking water, just replace it with Fiji water. They're not going to really even know the difference, honestly. And it might actually, I think it tastes a little bit better than regular water. It has almost like a little smoothness to it that you can't quite explain unless you've had it. But again, it's not something I would say, oh, they have to drink Fiji water now for the rest of their life. It's just do it for a couple of days to like try to when you're working on this detox stuff. Throw this in. It's so easy to do, and they're not actually that expensive in the stores. I do know that there is a controversy about how the people of Fiji can't even get this water for themselves, and it's a whole thing. But I would be amiss to tell you something that could help you and your family detox that's readily available in your grocery store right now. And I'm not going to get into that discussion on the right or wrongness of what's happening because I don't understand it enough myself to even have a discussion about it. But um, I just want you to know that it is there. But again, we don't drink it like exclusively. Again, we normally do water from home, but if you're detoxing, definitely check out the Fiji water. It's a very easy swap out. Okay. Number 2, having a breakfast that just has some sort of protein in it. Okay, so the amino acids that are in protein are actually very important to create the enzymes that are going to support all of your detoxification pathways. So you need protein to create those. So yogurt is an easy one, or a smoothie, right? If your kid has those pouches, the smoothie pouches, you're in luck. Great. So like let's get like a smoothie yogurt pouch or something. That's an easy one for breakfast. Of course, there's other sources of protein too, like eggs, pancakes. There are protein packed pancakes. I know Kodiak is a brand that specifically advertises themselves as a protein pancake. But you could also always add in, like I do, vanilla protein powder into regular pancake mix, and you get some protein there. So there's definitely options for you. And I think a lot of those options are fairly picky eater friendly, right? So you've got, a few different things to choose from. So most families are going to be able to grab some sort of a protein for breakfast. Of course, not all, but that's the goal, right? Some sort of protein, or like a smoothie that might have some protein in it, protein powder. That could work, right? Okay, number 3. So just moving, twisting specifically is going to be the most helpful. So when I say twisting, I am actually specifically, I'm going to use this little baby here. I'm specifically talking about twisting like at the hips, basically down where the intestines would be, right? So why are we twisting? So especially we have this so often that our picky eaters become constipated because they're not eating the right foods to help things move along. And they get very uncomfortable, which perpetuates the picky eating even more, right? So, actually twisting the legs, doing like some hip hip movements, hip widening, just getting the legs, the bottom half of your body twisting and moving. So you could literally do the twist, like do some dancing. Yoga is very good for this, but of course, I know not every kid is going to sit and do yoga with you. But even if you just played silly on the floor and you were like just kind of tickling and hanging around, you can kind of twist their legs back and forth, even a toddler or something, we can use a game twister for the older kids. We can definitely get them moving. Now, specific twisting and movement down in like the lower half of your body is great because your lymphatic system, which is a detoxification system in your body, actually doesn't have any it can't move on its own. It actually requires active movement to push everything through. So you know how like your esophagus, it has that peristalsic. Okay, I'm not sure if I'm saying that perfect. But that system, it's basically like the muscles will contract and pump and move the food down into your stomach. Your intestines have that same sort of motion where it'll move the food without you actively doing anything. Not your lymphatic system. There is nothing helping that other than you moving. And specifically, twisting will actually be very beneficial to that. So your lymphatic system needs movement and muscle action to detox. So getting them moving, and kids love moving anyway. They're usually pretty hard to get them to sit still. So for most people, this is not going to be a big stretch, right? This will be an easy one. Okay. Now, number 4, right? Am I on 4? Yes. Blowing bubbles. Right? Kids love blowing bubbles. This is an easy one. Now, how does this relate to detox? You're asking. It's really for deep breathing. You have to take a deep breath in, and you got to blow out a long breath out to get all of the bubbles to come out. So, whoever invented bubbles is an absolute genius. We're big bubble fans, especially with our picky eaters, to help relax their nervous system. Okay. But there's another benefit. It's not just relaxing the nervous system. Deep breathing increases the blood flow. Very important for detox is good blood flow. It also increases your oxygen levels in your blood. Now, oxygen actually helps your body absorb nutrients much easier. Everything works better when there's more oxygen, which is why hyperbaric oxygen therapy is very popular right now, because a lot of people just feel better. I feel like originally that type of therapy was tied to children with autism, but a lot of athletes, anyone who does any sort of strenuous work and needs a quick recovery, oxygen actually helps aid in that recovery. And it makes people feel better, because when everything has oxygen, everything works better. Just literally every organ, every part of your body, like there's nothing that would work better with less oxygen, right? So yeah, more oxygen is better, and deep breathing gives more oxygen to the cells, to the organs, everything. So Deep breathing is great. A lot of people will breathe shallowly, like they kind of breathe up here in their chest when you want to breathe down into your belly. Now, this is going to be more of I'd say a process if your kids are shallow breathers, teaching them to deep breathe. There's lots and lots of kid friendly videos on YouTube. A lot of your schools are already implementing this. They're doing deep breathing, they're doing mindfulness exercises that will all support this as well. But that deep breathing, the blowing of the bubbles, long breath out is all going to be very beneficial to helping them to strengthen the detox process. Okay, so my next tip, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Tip 5 is adding tea. So tea, actually, specific teas, I will tell you, are very beneficial to detox are green teas, nettle, and dandelion. Yes, it is actually the exact same dandelion that you are thinking of. You mean the weed in your garden that you've been pulling out? Yeah, that's actually probably one of like it's a superfood essentially. So dandelion root, yes, the root of that and the leaf are have a lot of very detoxing compounds in them. So yeah, before you go pulling all those weeds, they are actually more valuable than you think. But they do have pre-made teas, so you don't have to do anything specific in your garden. Um, but dandelion root, nettle, and green. Now, they all have great antioxidants, polyphenols, and vitamins. Specifically, green tea has a specific compound called EGCG. Oh, I always get that one mixed up. EGCG. And it's very anti inflammatory. And, well, of course, toxins inflame our body. So anything we do that's anti inflammatory is going to help ease any toxin symptoms in our body. So teas are great. Now you're going to be like, well, my kid's never going to drink tea. Like that's never going to happen. Now, of course, we can start introducing them to tea. It's probably something you never thought of. And this is not like Snapple iced tea. This is not the same. Do not do Snapple iced tea. That is like the worst idea. So this is actual like tea bags in water. Like that's the type of tea I'm talking about. So what you can do is you can make some tea. I find cold refrigerated tea much easier to drink. Um, Now, of course, there are other ways besides drinking it. You can actually add teas while you're baking. Like you can mix it into baked goods. Now, I haven't personally done this one, but I was reading about it and I think I am going to try a few recipes. I'm not a great baker. It's just a personal thing. It doesn't work super well when I try to bake. So I find that this one might be a hard one for me personally, but someone who loves baking can definitely experiment and explore this one further. I'd love to hear a recipe or if you've tried it and how it tasted. But you probably have had some things like even if you think of like something like a brownie with like a mint flavor, right? A peppermint, right? That's not so big of a stretch to add like peppermint tea in with the brownie mix, right? Some people go crazy. Some people do like lavender, which is like a nice herb. But you've heard of like herbal baked goods, I'm sure. Um, but I can't give you too much specifics other than finding recipes on Google, unfortunately. But that is an option. There are so many amazing properties of tea. And if you're wondering, like, is it safe to give kids tea? Yes. Most cultures around the world, they are drinking tea. It's like a pretty like lifelong. Even little babies, they are drinking tea from a very very early age. In America, it doesn't seem to be very common, but most of the world does this sort of thing. So yes, it is safe for them. It's not like you'd want to do it every meal, but having one of these types of detoxifying teas is definitely going to be beneficial, especially if you're doing hey, this week we're going to really work hard on our detox, right? Um, that's totally perfectly fine. Um, Now, the next one, actually, the next two tips are really for bath time. Um, so, the first one I'll tell you about is dry brushing. So, this you use like a very like a hard bristle brush, and what you do is you like stroke down on your skin, and what it does actually is this also, like before, I was talking about the lymphatic system. And this activates that lymphatic system and gets things moving, this dry brushing activity. It also encourages like the cells to regenerate, it exfoliates the skin, tones the skin. Um, and it also increases blood circulation when you do dry brushing. Now, kids who are sensory seeking, oftentimes, and if you've ever had an OT work with your child, they did brushing. If your child loved brushing, they're going to love this activity. Now, this might be overstimulating for some kids and it might not work as well. But a lot of kids who might even actually crave and love this feeling. But you want to do it all over the body, arms and legs. You could do it on the belly, the back. It just kind of gets things moving. And you can do it right before bath time because then they jump in the bath. Any, dead skin kind of will come off with them in the bath. Um, and now my other tip, my bonus tip here is throwing in Epsom salt into the bath before they get in. And if you really want to make it extra special, I always take Epsom salt, put it in my hand, and just add a few drops of lavender essential oil because it helps with bedtime as well. There is magnesium and sulfate in Epsom salt. Both of those compounds are very beneficial and needed when you're detoxing. But magnesium is also an amazing compound that helps with sleep. So, if taking a bath is part of your nighttime routine to help them relax and wind down, adding this in is only going to enhance that. And sometimes they even make Epsom salt that has like lavender in it. So you don't even like that's like one less step you have to do. It's very easy. You just get a little scooper, throw it in the bath as you're filling the tub. And that's really it, right? It kind of like disintegrates and um the kids come out smelling good and feeling good and relaxed, and you're also helping them detox at the same time, right? So amazing. Okay, we're on a roll. Okay, last, and this is a big one, and this we're really going to need own its own topic to talk about. Um, is swapping out toxic products because there's so much involved in this, and literally in every part of your house, inside and out, there is the opportunity for toxic products or non-toxic products. And going into like, where do you find these and how do you know which one is toxic? Or even if it says natural, sometimes that's just like good marketing. It doesn't actually mean that it comes from something natural or is good for you. But in general, starting to swap out products that are toxic for organic ones, for non-toxic ones, are going to be beneficial to everyone in your family. Now, like I said, next week I'm going to do a more in-depth talk about this. So I'm really not going to talk about it much at all today. However, I will say that just start like looking at the back of your products. Are there words that you can't pronounce on there? Are there anything that says that there's dyes in there? Like color dyes. That's always like a red flag. I'm going to give a specific list of words to look for. which will be very helpful, I think. That's how I started to learn. And once started to learn and I was looking at all the backs of all of my items that I have in my house, I started to learn pretty quick what those words were. And now I don't even have to consult the list. It becomes second nature at some point. Okay. So, so we're going to talk about that next week, and I'm really excited to chat about that. But I hope that these tips have been very helpful, and I hope that they'll be super easy to implement and you'll be able to get to work on that right away. Because I think you'll find the benefits for everyone in your family are really going to be amazing, not just your picky eater. I think it's going to be family wide that everyone benefits. Now, if this was helpful to you, please, subscribe, rate, review. That would be so helpful. I really appreciate all the support. And as always, if you need further help in anything related to feeding, visit our website, foodologyfeeding.com. We have so many resources, both free and paid. So lots of choices for you. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. I will see you guys in the next episode. And we also have later this month, I'm going to be interviewing a homeopathic doctor, talking about how they can help with detox and really just improving everything in life. Um, there seems to be nothing that homeopathy can't seem to work on. So I think that'll be really fun for you guys to listen to. So definitely stay tuned. The next couple weeks are going to be chock full of information. And I will see you guys soon. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater. To learn more about achieving your child's feeding goals, check out Christine's website at foodologyfeeding.com. And be sure to tune in next time to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater.